So I want to talk about a few things that I'm seeing all over social media, and social media, especially after losses, it's one of the worst places to be if you're a Jet fan. Jets Twitter, the amount of nonsense and garbage that gets perpetuated on there is just completely absurd. And usually, how it starts is, one person says something, it gets retweeted a few times, and then a few people follow it, and suddenly, it's viewed as fact when in reality it's just not. And there's a few things that have been going around about the team, and obviously I went off the other day, on a few things about Bowles and just how the team came out against Jacksonville. Most of them I still look at it and say it was deserved. You can't come out and have games like that. But at the same time, as I mentioned in the end of the video, they hadn't had a game like that since Oakland. So, if you have one of those or, even like two of them every year, most teams do, even the good teams do. So, if they come back strong this week against Denver, it gets forgotten about, and that's the end of it. But a few things that I have seen, though, that I just don't understand. The first being that, the Jets are just a completely undisciplined team with Todd Bowles. And, just looking at a couple numbers here, the penalties have obviously wiped out some big plays. I don't deny that. But to say that they've been undisciplined would infer that, they're one of the more heavily penalized teams in the league. And that's just not true. Right now, they're 8th in fewest penalties, which is a hell of a nice improvement from 25th last year. And, just looking at a few other numbers on the defense, because, there's a narrative also floating around that, the team is just not improving at all, which I think is false. If you want to, point to the offense, maybe regressing a little bit, of course, that's going to happen when you have a rookie quarterback. But looking at the defense, and not just penalties, but yards per game, they were also 25th last year. Right now, even with the 500 yards they gave up to Jacksonville, they ranked 13th. Last year, they were 28th in sacks with only 28 on the year. This year, through 4 games already, they're tied for 12th with 10. So, that's a slight improvement, especially when you consider the fact that, they've been operating without an edge rusher. Josh Martin's been out. So, and he's not even, a sack specialist, but he was your starter opposite Jenkins. So, the fact that they're still getting to the quarterback a little bit, it's pretty telling. And then the big one for me is turnovers, because that's the sign of a big-time defense. Last year, they only had 20 on the season. Right now, they're currently tied with the Dolphins for 3rd with 10. So they're already halfway there through 4 games. I think that's a huge improvement, but, a lot of people are just saying, no, the team's going backwards, because we look at what took place last week rather than the bigger picture, rather than the fact that they were competitive against some very good offenses and some very good teams pretty much every single game last year. And they did have a couple good games this year that they just didn't close out. The other thing that I keep saying is the adjustments, and that's a word that we throw around so much. A lot of times it's right. I don't deny it. There have been times where Bowles has failed to adjust, but when he does make adjustments and they work out, we don't really hear about it. Or when he does make adjustments and they work, but a player messes up, we still say, shame on Bowles, you didn't make adjustments. And so, just looking at the way games have unfolded this year, I broke this down about a week ago. The Detroit game was obvious. They made phenomenal adjustments, 31 points in the third quarter, blew the Lions right out of the building in the second half of that game. And then even with Miami, they shut the Dolphins out in the second half. That game fell on, wide receivers not making catches, a few untimely penalties and things like that. But, to say that they weren't making adjustments in that game, again, I don't think that's very accurate. And then you look at the Cleveland game, that you can give them a loss on that one as far as adjustments go. They decided to play coverage with Mayfield pretty much the entire game. I didn't think that was the way to go. But even still, there were 2 fumbles on the ground, and there was the pick that I had mentioned, that went right through Middleton's hands. If you make those plays, suddenly the narrative changes from failure to make adjustments to, hey, guys were in the right spot to make plays like they thought they were. They thought that they could force Mayfield and the Browns into some turnovers while they had the lead, and while Darnold clearly, wasn't having his best game with only a couple days to prepare. They were facing a quarterback that didn't have any film, his first NFL game. They thought they could force him into a few turnovers, and they were right. They just didn't execute. So again, pointing to lack of adjustments on that, I don't think is fair. And then even with the Jacksonville game, you can criticize the game plan all you want and, whatever went into the week of prep, but they still forced 3 turnovers in the second half. some of that has to be on adjustments. Tremaine Johnson getting beat on a deep ball in the second half, to me, that's not adjustments. That's a player getting beat. Okay, so we throw around a lot of these words, and a lot of them I feel like are pushed by people who just want to see Todd Bowles out the door. And again, I went off on Bowles a couple days ago because it was deserved. But still looking at the bigger picture, I have not once said yet, fire Todd Bowles. Okay? He's starting to trend in that direction where it's like, how many times can you forgive him for certain things? But I think far too often we point the finger at him for things that aren't necessarily his fault, that aren't the product of bad coaching, just players not making plays. And that's to be expected because, like I keep saying, we're in year 2 of a rebuild. So to be expecting these games to all be wins right now, it's just not realistic. It's not realistic when you're sitting on $90 million. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be hiccups. The team is still learning to close out games, and they're doing it with a rookie quarterback. So, again, nothing is going to be perfect. I'm not expecting them to be perfect. I'm expecting them to be better than they were against Jacksonville. But, again, all these terms like undisciplined, not making adjustments, I don't think it's all factual, okay? Just looking at a few more things. Again, Leonard Williams is another guy I put on my notes really quick because I've seen people refer to him as a bust. People say that we shouldn't pay him or give him an extension, depending on what he's asking for. Again, I'm not going to make a statement on that yet, but Leonard Williams is a good friggin' player, okay? Borderline great player. He may not put up the numbers that you would like, especially from a guy that was drafted 6th overall, but he plays such an integral part of this defense, and it may not always show up on the stat sheet, but other guys making sacks are a product of what Leonard Williams is doing. He is a huge part of this defense. I don't want to lose him. I think he's going to be that anchor that you need on that defensive line for a long, long time. I think when you finally do get an edge rusher to put on the outside, that's going to help him immensely and actually start getting those numbers for him. But right now, again, it is what it is. He's playing his part on the defense. We'd like to see some more numbers. I think they will still come in time, but he is a good friggin' player, and the amount of heat that he's taken, I think, is just completely ridiculous. But again, people know a lot more than I do, so I guess I probably shouldn't comment on that. Same thing as Jeremy Bates. We keep hearing that he's an idiot, that, he doesn't know what he's doing with the play calling and all that. I don't know how many times it needs to be said. Rookie quarterback, these are the type of things that you just have to expect. People forget that he was here last year, under John Morton, and a lot of people, including Manish Mehta, were very adamant that he was the brains behind the offense. That the game planning and everything during the week was largely a part of him. And, Morton, he didn't run the ball enough for Todd Bowles' liking. I thought Morton did a very good job with play calling last year, and that's something that, we still have to see with Bates. I'm not going to say, through 4 games that, this guy's a lost cause, but I would like to see some better play calling. I would like to see a few more shots downfield. How much of that is the product, again, of a rookie quarterback and just trying to develop Darnold, not get him killed behind this offensive line? I don't know, but, we'll see in time. And just the last thing I guess I'll comment on is the team being flat and not having energy, which I think couldn't be any further from the truth. I think at the end of the day, that's just a product of the way some of these games have shaped out. You get off to a bad start, or, a team comes back on you and suddenly, you look flat. Or, Darnold throws a pick early on against the Dolphins. We're down 20-0. Oh, well, you look flat. No, these guys are fired up every week. These guys want to win. We know the type of locker room that we have. I don't think that there's anybody that's coming into these games unmotivated or, not with the right mindset. So, try not to look so much at the results and just look at the way that guys are playing. All right. And, actually the final thing that I will say, and this isn't really so much of a lie, just, a fact, as far as where Jeff fans are right now, it's crazy to me that Rich Cimini and Manish Mehta have become the voice of reason amongst Jeff fans. Jeff fans have panicked and called for guys to be fired and everything else more than the media has. And, growing up for so long, reading this team, the reason why I wanted to get into sports writing and everything else was because of how much I hated a lot of the guys that covered the team and the type of negative coverage that we always got. And it's amazing to me how much that has shifted now from the media to the fans, where the fans are the ones that are starting all of this. It's not so much the media anymore. In the media, we're starting to get some respect. A lot of guys respect Arnold. A lot of guys are willing to have patience with Bowles, and they think that this team is headed in the right direction. It's just crazy to me how many fans are already, ready to just hit the reset button and start all over. I think that's the wrong way to go. I think we're heading in the right direction. I still believe that, but there's 12 more games left, and at the end of the day, what they show on the field is how they're going to be judged. So, this Sunday, I think we have a very winnable game. I think we can get to Keenum. I think that the Broncos secondary, I think they could be beat deep. I think we can run on them. I'm not sure what to really expect from the crowd. Coming off 3 losses, I don't know how many people are going to be there. Probably a lot of Bronco fans are going to be there. But I think this defense is going to be fired up with what they showed last week. I'm expecting a big-time performance, and I'm definitely expecting a win. So go Jets. Talk to you guys soon.